Hi there, it's Asia. You've probably heard that in the IELTS exam, you should avoid word repetition and use synonyms. Although this is true, excessive and incorrect use of synonyms creates more problems than it aims to solve. Have a look at this introduction to IELTS Writing Task 2. Although it's generally good, one problem draws all the attention. There are 4 synonyms for the word children, and every single one of them is incorrect. So in this video, you can learn what synonyms you can use for common words in IELTS writing and how to use them correctly to boost your score. I also show you how to solve the problem of word repetition in this particular introduction. Okay, let's get started. Let's start with the word we've just discussed, children. A child is a wide term, and the word children is often used in IELTS writing. First of all, don't feel the pressure to replace it. If you see this word in your task, you can repeat it in your essay. That's fine. Let's talk about its synonyms. The first word that often comes to mind is a kid, kids. This is a good word, and it does mean children. There is only one problem. It's informal. In the IELTS exam, you should only use informal words in IELTS speaking, but not in IELTS writing. So you can't use kids in your essay, unfortunately. The next word is a teenager. This is a good word for your essay, but it only means children between the age of 13 and 19 and not younger children. Here is an example of how to use it. In my opinion, teenagers sometimes lack clear goals as well as a positive mentality when it comes to achieving their goals. The next word is an offspring. This is a formal word, but this is a person's child. And actually, the singular form is an offspring, and the plural is just offspring. There is no S at the end. Some parents would rather stay ignorant of their offspring's actions because it is easier for them not to get involved. Oh, these are pretty bad parents, but anyways, this is how you use it. You must talk about parents and their children. We couldn't use this word in the first example. In my opinion, offspring sometimes lack clear goals. So in this case, it wouldn't make sense. Next, a sibling. This is a formal word for a brother or a sister. Sibling rivalry and jealousy are common occurrences in families. So occasionally, you can replace children with siblings or offspring, but not always, just sometimes. Next, an adolescent. This is a young person who is developing into an adult. The vast majority of teachers have come up with strategies to deal with adolescents and their developmental needs. Or, adolescents often struggle for some autonomy from their parents, yet still need adult guidance. So the word adolescent is often used to highlight that those young people are still developing into adults. They are not adults yet. Sometimes it can be used to describe an adult's behavior that is a bit silly or a bit like a teenager. Adolescent humor or adolescent behavior are some of the collocations. Next, youth. Sometimes people use this word to replace children. Well, first of all, youth means the time of life when a person is young. Some waste their youth in front of computer screens. So here are some collocations. Misspent youth. That's when you party too much, or maybe actually study too much. To spend youth, or to waste youth. If you say the youth, then you mean young people considered as a group. All the young people everywhere. The youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow. Or there is an increase in youth unemployment. So this noun includes all the young people. You can't talk about children going to a particular school and refer to them as the youth. Now, there are some words which are sometimes used, but actually they shouldn't be. Let me show you them. The first is a youngster. It does mean a young person, usually a teenager, but it's informal. So you can only use it in IELTS speaking. I think teaching youngsters the importance of hard work is vital. Okay, next. A juvenile. This is a young person who is not yet an adult, but this word is only used in the legal context. Memorize these collocations: juvenile crime and juvenile offenders. That's how you use it. In my opinion, the maximum sentence for juveniles shouldn't be more than 3 years. So it's not the same as children. You can also refer to some silly actions by an adult as juvenile. Juvenile sense of humor, but again, that's not for your writing essay. Next, a minor. That's someone who's too young to have the legal responsibilities of an adult. And again, it's used in the legal context. A child is a minor until the age of legal majority, which is 18 in Europe and 21 in the US. Or, it is an offense to serve alcohol to minors. This word is only used to say that someone's responsibilities are limited because of their age. The next word that is extremely common in IELTS writing is people. How can we replace it? Well, sometimes we can refer to people as humans, but only in situations when we compare them to robots or machines, animals or gods. Here are some examples. It is only human to make mistakes. We're not robots, we're not gods, we're human and we make mistakes. Next. The greatest damage to our planet today is being done by humans, not by animals, by humans. So if you're just talking about people generally, you can't use this word. Most humans work full-time. No, this sentence is wrong. You must say most people work full-time. Okay, sometimes people use these big words: mankind, humankind, and humanity. All three of them refer to all the people on Earth. And actually, we don't really talk about these situations in IELTS writing, so don't use these words in your essays. An individual is a word you could actually use. It means a single person, especially compared to a group of people. Here are some examples. The Western culture rests on the belief that each person is an individual capable of making their own decisions regarding their life. Or, the average individual watches around 2 hours of television per day. So instead of saying people watch 2 hours of television, you say the average individual watches. Okay, sometimes you can simply drop the word people. For example, if you're talking about many people, you can just drop it and say many. Even though the prices in the housing market are soaring, many still believe that buying a property is the best investment. Similarly, instead of saying some people, you can say some. Although some find this hard to believe, it has been scientifically proven. There is actually a nice grammatical structure that allows you to compare two groups. Some and some. Some children like to play outside and some do not. Some people like to work office hours and some do not. Similarly, you can use some and others. Some students are willing to go the extra mile and others choose a laid-back approach during their studies. So, others means other students, but we don't have to repeat the noun. Here's another example. Working with some children with disabilities can be more challenging than others. Others is other children. There is another way to avoid repeating people, children, or another noun. This is to use the passive voice. Let me show you some pairs of sentences. On average, people use their cars only 5% of the time. How could we rephrase it using the passive voice? The average car is used only 5% of the time. And we don't need to use the word people, so the problem solved. Here is another pair of sentences. People committed more crimes in 1970s than in any other period over the last 50 years. In the passive voice, we could say, the largest number of crimes was committed in 1970s. In some IELTS writing tasks, you need to compare men and women. So in this case, you can refer to them as males and females. According to some studies, the literacy rate for the adult male population has drastically increased over the years. Or, females represent about 70% of the school's workforce. The topic of gender equality is highly debated today, so I'm going to give you some collocations. Male-dominated industries, professions, workplace, or environment. When you're comparing men and women, but want to talk about both of them, you can use gender or sex. So these nouns mean a group of people who share particular qualities or ways of behaving which society associates with being male or female. In my opinion, all genders are able to take care of children equally. Or, some people would rather not know the sex of the baby until it is born. And again, some collocations. Gender, stereotypes, discrimination, bias, and inequality. The next phrase I want to talk about is a lot of. We use it a lot. Unfortunately, it's informal. Even though you may get away with using it in your essay, ideally you shouldn't. And you should definitely avoid using lots of and tons of because those are very informal. Students are given tons of homework. This is only okay in IELTS speaking and definitely not in IELTS writing. So here are some formal alternatives for your essays. A number of or a large number of. This is a perfect alternative. It works in all cases. A large number of parents reported that their children struggled academically and suffered emotionally during distant learning. Or, there are a number of factors that influence the growth and development of a child. Please note that if you have a number of factors, so the word factors is plural, so you say a number of factors are, or there are a number of factors, just like with a lot of. Okay, the next is many. You might have learned at school that you can only use many if you're asking a question or you have a negative sentence. I haven't read many books, but if the sentence is positive, you have to use a lot of. I have read a lot of books, but this is only true for spoken English. In formal written English, you can and should use many. Many disabled people regularly use public transport. Just the same way you can use much with uncountable nouns. Much has been done in recent times to repair the damage. Well, actually, in this example, much is the noun. A multitude. This is a formal noun which you can use sometimes when you talk about a great number of something. Cities have a multitude of problems, from homelessness to drugs and crime. Or, the city's museums offer a multitude of cultural activities. So, to use this noun, you must talk about a great number of something, not just a few things. Another popular noun is a plethora. It is a formal noun, but it doesn't mean a lot. It means too many, too much, more than you need and can deal with. So only use it in this context. There is a plethora of books about learning English, like too many books. There is a plethora of details in this report. Where is the summary? The next word I want to talk about is results. How can you talk about them in your essay? There are several words, but each of them has its own unique meaning. The first one is a consequence or consequences. This is a result or effect of something, usually unwelcome or unpleasant. So consequences are negative. Taking financial risks can have serious consequences. And they're not talking about winning. The collocations are to accept, consider, face, or suffer consequences. You can use it with the following adjectives: serious, adverse, unforeseen, potential, far-reaching, or direct consequences. Okay, so consequences can be direct. Repercussions are indirect, but are also negative. And we use it the following way: to have repercussions for somebody or something. The decrease in tourism will most likely have serious repercussions for the local economy. And the adjectives are considerable, major, or significant repercussions. Well, actually, considerable, major, and significant are perfect adjectives for your task 2 essay because they are formal and can be used in many different situations. I've even created a PDF guide of synonyms for common nouns that should be used in task 2 essays, and I will link it in the description, so please download it. The next synonym is an outcome. Unlike repercussions and consequences, which are always negative, an outcome may be negative or positive. Sometimes we use this noun when the result is still unknown. It is too early to predict the outcome of the global pandemic. The collocations are to influence, determine, or predict an outcome. A favorable, positive, negative, possible, final outcome. Why am I giving you all these collocations? Well, if you learn them, you will be able to use those words correctly and combine them into phrases and sentences correctly, and you will get a higher score for your vocabulary as a result. Now let's talk about advantages and disadvantages. In my courses, I split all task 2 essays into 5 types, and advantages and disadvantages is one of them. So here is an example of how to use one of the words. Traditional working patterns place women at a particular disadvantage. To place somebody at a disadvantage. That's a nice phrase. As for adjectives, you can use considerable, significant, or major advantage or disadvantage. Now, how can you avoid repeating those words too frequently? Well, a common phrase is pros and cons, which means arguments for and against. It's nice, but it's a bit informal. It's not terribly informal, so you can get away with it in your essay, but it's better to keep it for IELTS speaking. Personally speaking, I always try to weigh up all the pros and cons of the matter before making any decisions. That's something you could say in your speaking exam. Or if you get a question, what do you think about this or that? You're like, well, there are pros and cons. And then you give some. In IELTS writing, you could use upsides and downsides. These are positive and negative aspects of something. And here are a couple of examples. The upside of being homeschooled is less social pressure that reduces self-esteem and discourages academic progress. The downside of it is limited access to resources such as technology and software that may be available in a public school. You can also talk about benefits and drawbacks. These are favorable and unfavorable factors or reasons. A major drawback of public schools is students' inability to choose curriculum based on their personal interests and needs. Curriculum is what subjects you study, and in some public schools you can't choose what you study. Okay, you can also talk about strengths and weaknesses. Homeschool teachers focus upon individual students' strengths and weaknesses. Or, although women and men are commonly seen as having different strengths and weaknesses, there are some traits that they have in common. Okay, now let's come back to the introduction I showed you at the very beginning and let's solve the problem of incorrect synonyms. I changed a couple of phrases to make the grammar a bit more natural, but basically I just concentrated on solving the problem of word repetition or synonyms. When youngsters, so now we know that youngsters is an informal word. When children read educational books, they broaden and enrich their minds. So these are pronouns. Some argue that kids is informal. Some argue that children should only read books related to their studies. Well, others believe that young ones, we don't really use this phrase at all, that they should also read books for fun. This essay will discuss both sides of the argument and support the view that juveniles should read. Well, now we know that juveniles can only be used in the legal context, like juvenile offenders. But instead of replacing the word, I actually changed the whole sentence structure. So some support the view that reading educational books is more important. And now I don't need children or juveniles at all. As you can see, I repeated the word children, but I didn't use any other synonyms. Instead, I used pronouns and a different grammatical structure. And I talked about these other techniques that allow us to avoid word repetition in my other video, which I will link right on the screen. Please watch it, you'll find it helpful. And don't forget to download synonyms for most common adjectives used in IELTS writing task 2. Thank you so much for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye!